like to call this meeting to order. This is the City of Southfield regular meeting of the Planning Commission for April 19th, 2023. Okay, and we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bernuti?
Present.
Ms. Goodwin-Dye?
Present.
Mr. Griffiths?
Here.
Ms. Gruber?
Present.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Dr. Stevens gun is excused this evening. Mr. Willis?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum to conduct business this evening.
Thank you. We have an agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion on the agenda?
I would, through the chair, motion for approval of the minutes for today's date, April 19th, 2023.
I second the motion.
I have a motion to approve the agenda by Commissioner Willis, seconded by Commissioner Bernuti. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Are there any announcements or communications?
I don't have any at this time, sir.
All right. First item is a public hearing, PSLU 23-0002.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to present both the special land use and the site plan for this project together. As you're aware, for special land uses, that you will be required to have a public hearing. Then after the public hearing portion, you can then move to the site plan. We're perfectly comfortable if you want to follow through with that process. But this project is PSLU 23-0002, PSP 23-0004. This is the request of ZA Design Build. The property located on parcel 2407477-008. It's on the north side of 12 Mile Road between Franklin and Northwestern Highway, B3 General Business. The special use is to allow for a standalone restaurant with a drive-through in the B3 General Business District. The site plan portion is for the conversion of the existing bank to a Savvy Sliders restaurant with drive-through, as well as all of the regular amenities that we would generally ask for through site plan. Well, this is a closer look at the property itself. As I noted, it is a closed bank, vacant. One of the questions that came up at our last meeting had to do with an easement agreement. We did find in our files an easement agreement between the subject property and then the office building to the north that allows the pass-through. So we're good with that. The one issue that does come into play has to do with the parking requirements. Right now they have a requirement for 4 parking spaces. They're short on site. My understanding in talking with the petitioner is that they have had a conversation with the property owner to the north. Actually have an email that already states that the petitioner can use 4 parking spaces on their site to meet their parking requirements. So we do not have to go for any kind of a waiver of parking. They can actually use 4 spaces on the adjacent site. It does require an easement agreement, parking agreement that does have to be recorded with the county. So they will be putting that together, but at least we know that they can meet their parking counts with the property to the north. There's existing conditions for the existing bank site. As I noted, B3 General Business, future land use plan is regional mixed use. This is the most recent site plan for the property. If you recall from the last meeting, they provided an area right along 12 Mile Road in the public sidewalk for bike rack. They have shifted the bike rack closer to the building now, and then the area where that bike rack was is now serving as the pedestrian connection. Reason why it's in this particular location, and I'll go back a couple of slides here, is because there is a small, about 12-inch to 18-inch, retaining wall in that particular area closer to the building. It just would not allow for a proper sidewalk to meet the requirements for someone who might be in a wheelchair, barrier-free access. So they did move it, the access to the other side. They do also provide for the striped access aisle across the parking lot to get to the ramp that would then lead to the building. They show all our required parking spaces, the stacking spaces. There was a question with regard to the area on the south side of the building as you exit, and it looks like a bit of a choke spot right there. I apologize that I do not have a response back from the fire department on that yet with regard to whether or not he is okay with that. I will tell you that there is sufficient landscape space there that if we needed to expand that area to 20 feet, the petitioner could definitely do that. This is the landscape plan for the property. Elevations. These are the renderings. If you recall, we have a Savvy Sliders that is proposed for 8 Mile Road. So the color scheme is very similar with the black and then kind of the red and the white included. Floor plan for the property as well. And then with that, I invite the petitioner to come up and give any additional comments on his proposal.
Please approach the podium, give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, members. My name is Zaid Arabo from ZA Design Build, 31313 Northwestern Highway, Farmington Hills, Michigan. Jeff pretty much said it all. Sent us comments a few weeks ago. We had about 10 or 11 items to address as far as some more dimensions on the property, crosswalk, snow storage area, which would be on the northwest corner, sort of where the cars are turning. Yes, sir, right there. And I believe there's one thing I'd like to address and see if the members would take into consideration. There is a requirement for having a screen wall around this sort of property, and I think we can get away with a Cyclone 42-inch high wall, and we address that by putting that in the plans, which would be on 20-foot setback from the east and west lot line, and of course the north lot line, except for where there's a cross easement. My request would be if the members be kind enough to maybe let us omit that part. I just feel like the site is a nice site. We're slightly refacing the building with the new color scheme. We have nice landscaping going in. The office buildings to the north and the buildings to the east and west are nice looking buildings with decent landscaping. I just feel like a 42-inch Cyclone fence is going to take away from just the view. I feel like it's possibly at nighttime, could serve as maybe a dangerous spot. If someone were to try to do something nefarious, they'd be screened from 12 Mile, having somebody see something bad, snow buildup, trash buildup. I'd rather just not see it there. I know it's part of the ordinance. That's the only thing I'm critical of. Otherwise, we've addressed everything Mr. Spence had requested.
Cool. Thank you. This is a public hearing. We'll open it up to the public at this time. You can sit down for a minute, and if there's anyone from the public that would wish to speak, please approach the podium. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Open up to the Planning Commission for questions or comments. Commissioner Martin.
In the northwest corner, where you were talking about snow, now, Jeff, can you go back to the landscape plan, please? I thought there was landscape plan there.
You're correct. That's an error on our part. So in an effort to try to get this right before this hearing, the landscape architect, he shouldn't have placed any landscaping back there.
So you're leaving that for?
We're gonna leave
for
that
so-
out, exactly.
For snow storage.
Exactly.
That, at present, that's my only question.
That's a good question.
Commissioner Gruber,
I don't have any questions at this time.
Mr. Willis.
Thank you. As I understand the initial recital, you are going to have a mutual easement with the parking lot outside of your facility.
Yes, sir.
It looks like the only way you can get into your lot, though, is where the cars drive. Will you have a place where a person can walk? Let's say where the parking is, so they could walk through parking?
Sure, so that's a good question too. You're saying that in the north property, when we secure the recorded easement, 4 spots, more than likely, that'll be employees, right? Just to stay out of the way, the employees can park there. You're saying, how are the employees gonna get from the north property onto this property?
Right.
I can put a dimension on that opening. You see where the sort of chevron-looking bumper stops or whatever those speed bumps.
Okay.
That's the word I'm looking for. I believe that is more than the required 24 feet for two-way traffic. If that's the case, I'll create some sort of pathway
Okay.
to ensure that, and if not, we'll just cut back. There's a rail back there, a steel rail. We can cut that back a little and create a pathway for those people.
Okay. That way, we're assured that you have sufficient parking for that unit, but
Makes
thank
sense.
you.
That way they're not walking all the way around and
Right.
coming around.
I'm good.
Just a clarification for the planning department. His request to omit the cyclone fence, is there a comment on that?
I have the ordinance right here, and it, based on, in the B3 general business for this type of use, says there shall be provided an unpierced face brick wall of 6 feet in height on all sides of the premises, so used except as provided below, provided that said fence or wall shall be protected by means of precast concrete, wheel stops, et cetera. One of those excepts is on the side of the property adjacent to a major thoroughfare. Now, the above described wall shall be reduced to a height of 3 foot 6 inches, which means then along 12 Mile Road. One of the other exceptions, a cyclone fence may be used in lieu of the wall on those sides, on those lot lines not adjacent to a street or alley, but contiguous to property zoned IL or I1, which we don't have here. It also states that no wall shall be required on that portion of the lot line where there's a building or structure serving the purpose of a wall. And then finally, a wall may be substituted with residential fence, subject to fence regulations of Article 4, Section 37.1, and per the review and approval of the city planner. So nowhere in this section does it say that the council can, or the planning commission can say no to the wall, or you don't need the wall. There's an exception to the wall. You can put a fence or something else in. There is a section in the zoning ordinance, though, under the wall portion that does state that the city council can, in lieu of a wall, allow something else, which could be landscaping, which could be the fence, could be something else. But the stipulation in this B3 section clearly states that there needs to be a fence or a wall basically on all 4 sides, but the wall can be shorter on 12 Mile side.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodwin Dye, any comments?
No, I was going to ask about the cyclone wall, because I didn't understand what it was.
Commissioner Bernuti?
My question, I was happy to hear that it was answered by Mr., can't think, Jeff, of your last name, but anyway, about the parking, that you have the intent of having a parking agreement with, for the lack of parking spaces you have now. The other question I had was in reference to pavement repair. There's a sinking area as you're coming out when you're exiting.
Sure, that'll be 100% repaired properly. And I'm sure the parking lot needs to be restriped It's been vacant for I don't know how long since Fifth Third left, but in doing this building renovation or facade alteration, minor facade alteration, all the landscaping, we'll make sure that we have, and I'm sure we can, Jeff will put a contingency that the parking lot will be maintained, and it will be maintained. I'm sure there's going to be an operating agreement for the owners to take care of the property. So we'll take care of that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other comments from the commission?
Yeah.
Commissioner Martin?
I have a concern with the need for the wall along the building. The drive-through area has a railing going across it,
That's right. Yep,
separated from a parking lot.
that's right.
And it doesn't seem logical that you'd want to put a wall between a parking lot and a driving area when you've got a steel reinforced fence already there. And I need some clarification on that. The wall he's talking about, if you can.
Mr. Spence, could you read the section in the B3 that requires that wall? My suspicion has to do with when drive-throughs first started coming through and they were noisy, that there had to be a separation. Now, as Mr. Spence had indicated, council can substitute the wall with a fence or landscaping, but I believe the wall was probably originally required when you're dealing with the noise of the menu board and the ordering and the drive-through and so forth. So if you could read the specific requirement in the section for this type of use.
Yep, so again, there shall be provided an unpierced face brick wall, 6 feet in height on all sides of the premises, so used except as provided below, provided said wall or fence is required, shall be protected by means of precast concrete wheel stops or their equivalent, not less than 3 feet from the wall. On the side of the property adjacent to a major thoroughfare, the above described wall shall be reduced to a height of 3 foot 6 inches. A cyclone fence may be used in lieu of the brick wall on those lot lines not adjacent to the street or alley, but contiguous to property zoned in an IL or I1 industrial classification. No wall shall be required on that portion of the lot line where there is a building or structure serving the purpose of a wall. Any such building or structure located on adjacent property shall be protected from damage by means of precast concrete wheel stops. The wall may be substituted with a residential fence, subject to fence regulations of Article 4, Section 5.37-1, and the review and approval of the city planner.
And we had a similar situation, if you recall, when the Kirby's Coney Island on Telegraph wanted to go to a drive-through. They had partial walls. I believe council ultimately, with the recommendation from the commission, allowed some evergreen screening and some other things to substitute for the wall. So, I mean, maybe we need to take a look at that as ordinance, but right now that's what's on the books. And there is the provision that council can substitute the wall requirement with either landscaping or fencing. And the only other option then is to go seek a waiver. So there is some remedy options, but right now that's the requirement on the book. And again, my suspicion is it was originally put in there because when drive-through started coming through, it was a noise issue.
Okay, and part of the reason I was asking is because Mr. Spence just explained that you had to have stops or something along there. They've got a 3 foot high steel reinforced pipe into the ground, into I-beams going to the ground to.
I think we would accept any reasonable
Yeah. And then that
barrier
leaves-
that protected the wall and or fence from
Yeah, and that-
cars.
So in essence, what I'm saying is that's leaving right, actually where they have the landscape going right now around that curve, it'd be the area that would require a fence. We're kind of confusing it that way. That,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is we're telling them he's gotta put up a fence, but if you look at what's there, you really don't need a fence along the whole area, just where they have the curb, where the snow storage will be at the back.
Right.
And then for the other side, here again, you've got parking space to parking space. And we're talking about putting a fence along there. There's nothing there now, so I can understand a fence being, or a wall, but if I hear you correctly, it either has to be the 6-foot fence or the 4-foot hurricane fence. But it's just, I just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna ask that our, Mr. Bolin, our planner, go out and take detailed photos of the particular areas in question, so we're better prepared at the council level.
And last but not least, the landscape at the front where your walkway is, that you added in going across the parking space, do you know the height of that? Because what I'm looking at is that you've got pedestrian entrance or crosswalk, and coming along the street, is that going to block any of the view for the pedestrian crosswalk?
There's,
Well, it shouldn't be higher than 30 inches.
yeah,
That's our requirement.
so there's just shrubs no higher than 30 inches and then one deciduous tree.
Okay, so I was just thinking of pedestrian traffic, that was all.
No, it's a small caliper, yeah. And just to go back to the railing on the drive-through side, the 3-foot-high steel rail, that's there to serve not just as a fence, but there's a drop-off. Mr.
Yeah.
Spence showed it earlier, the picture from the front where we could have put the sidewalk through the face of the building. We had to go. So the site picks up as you go west, and then it stays up, and that guardrail is there so that a car doesn't flip
Right,
over.
because,
No,
yeah,
doesn't-
because if
exactly.
you go from
So
their
there's-
drive, from your
exactly.
driveway
That's
to the
right.
next driveway, to the next parking lot, there's the
There's a
difference.
little
Yeah.
drop-off, correct. So it's not really a retaining wall, it's just there to protect the drive-through cars.
But it's a very good retaining wall, too.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Serves a purpose.
Any other comments from the commission? We have a planner's recommendation.
Well, if I may, just first of all, before we go beyond the fence issue, wall issue, just to the city planner, is it possible that the planning commission could make a recommendation to council about wall versus fence versus?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and what we can do is, based on your recommendation, before we take this to council, we'll make sure we have an internal meeting, make sure we're all in agreement of moving forward on this issue. But certainly, you can make that as part of your conditions, that in lieu of a wall, and just leave it open-ended, a fence or landscaping, subject to the planning department.
And to clarify, what is spelled out on the plans right now on the west and north, I guess, the west, north, and east sides?
42-inch cyclone fence, black.
New 42-inch cycle.
New
Yes.
42-inch cyclone fence, black. Just try to keep the color sort of consistent with the building. I wouldn't mind adding a little bit of landscaping here and there, but again, walls are great when you're abutting neighbors, residential alleys, but we're commercial to commercial. I know it's a little bit different, drive-through to office, and it's not the money, obviously. We're spending enough over here. I just feel like, as you're driving by 12 Mile, I've lived in Southfield and grew up in Southfield. It just feels weird just driving by and seeing a black cyclone fence just around our property. Unless there's something different, I didn't see it at the Chick-fil-A, the Tim Hortons on 12 and Evergreen, unless I'm wrong. I feel like the site is a pretty nice site, unless there was some sort of precedence there that I'm not aware of. But anyways, I just thought I'd bring it up just because I just think it's a little bit unsightly. And more importantly, maybe a little bit unsafe too at nighttime.
I believe that Chick-fil-A has a different zoning.
It did.
Okay, I figured it out.
Yeah, that's my thought. A cyclone fence isn't gonna stop any sound, so what's
No.
the purpose is it really serving?
And I don't know that there's much sound. These cars are usually moving fairly slow around the curb, right? No different than anyone going up and down the parking lot from the neighboring. But again, I just thought I'd throw it out there and at your mercy. see what you guys say.
So I guess I'm looking for a direction from the planning commission because it's not meeting the ordinance anyway, which is a 6-foot masonry fence. It's a 42-inch cyclone fence, or he's asking for no fence. Does anyone really insist upon the fence or, see any good purpose served by the masonry wall?
I think,
This-
really and truly, what we should be pushing for is that when we have a situation where we have, I forgot the zoning. When we have B3 zoning, and there's parking lot to parking lot, that a barrier is not 100% necessary, is not always necessary. Here we have a parking lot to parking, a driveway to parking lot area where a hurricane fence would be sufficient rather than a brick wall.
So if I could, you can either recommend fence and/or landscape in lieu of the wall, or if there's no fence, then you have to recommend that he seek a waiver.
Okay.
Because we just can't arbitrarily say nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing,
just
yeah.
delete the requirement from the planning commission. So I guess I'll ask the petitioner one more time, would you be open to the fence and landscaping, or zoning board of appeals is the other path?
You're saying landscaping in lieu of a fence, or fence and landscaping?
It sounds like fence plus landscaping because you're not meeting the ordinance requirement
For the 6
of
foot?
the masonry, 6 foot.
And if we seek a waiver through what body one more time?
Zoning Board of Appeals.
Zoning Board of Appeals. Would we then not be scheduled for the May 1st council?
Well, if I could, May 1st is for discussion purposes.
Discussion purpose.
And if council were to approve this, let's say on May 24th, it would be subject to you getting the waiver.
Okay.
And
So-
you could apply for the waiver tomorrow and schedule it out where it would fall only a couple weeks after the council's approval.
The second meeting with council.
Yes.
Is it the 22nd or the 24th?
22nd.
22nd. So we can seek the waiver for the fence, but stay on the agenda for the 1st and the 22nd. And by the time construction documents are prepared, hopefully we can get
Yeah.
onto that body.
And again, I would strongly urge you to meet with us independently, make sure we're all on the same page before you actually request the waiver.
For sure.
So I'm going to recommend that the planning commission can make one of the conditions in lieu of a wall, either fencing and/or landscaping. And then if you want to proceed with the waiver, then we'll have that as part of the conditions before final approval with council.
Thank
So it's an and/or
Okay.
as opposed to and plus,
Okay.
because there might be an area where landscaping makes more sense than a fence or.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, if that's acceptable to
I think that's
proceed
fair.
with
Yeah.
the- Okay.
I would just have a really eager tenant that wants to go in. I don't want to delay the process anymore over a fence,
Yep.
but I think that's a fair assessment. Meet with the city, go through the council, and then seek the waiver as well.
Okay.
Okay, so again, I just want to make sure that I have this right because it's going to be a condition of the site plan, that a fence or landscape in lieu of the required wall. That's what I heard.
Right, that's
And
all-
then, but the
that's-
ZBA will be a separate issue later on?
That's, as far as tonight's recommendation, that's all we need.
Yes,
Jeff.
okay, thank you.
And then if the applicant wants to pursue a waiver, we'll need to know that information prior to the council's conditional approval.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Willis, another question?
No, I think in part of your recommendation, I'm sorry, I think you said you had a email agreement for mutual easement. I would hope that you would have one, at least in writing, signed by the appropriate parties for that. I don't think it needs to be recorded, but I just think we should have it as part of our records. I think that's it.
We're going to work on that. Like,
Okay.
first thing tomorrow, we'll get the attorneys talking and get the agreement on a simple 8.5 by 11 and bring it to the next meeting, hopefully, while we record.
Okay, there's too many things go wrong. I've seen the lawyer's office, so,
I know. I
Okay.
charge by the hour.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, if that wasn't already on your conditions, could you please also add that?
Yeah, if I may through the chair, it was already in the conditions. Again, right now we're focusing on the special land use.
Okay.
So a lot of the things that we were just discussing will be on the site plan portion. So right now, we've been dealing with the special use, at least that's what I'll be making a recommendation on here shortly,
Okay.
unless there are other questions.
I don't think there are any questions on the special land use.
Okay, then I will go into the recommendation for special land use. With regard to PSLU 23-0002, the Planning Department does recommend favorable recommendation of the special use request of ZA Design Build on behalf of the owner, Todd Development, to allow for a standalone Savvy Sliders restaurant with drive-through, property located at 26336 West 12 Mile Road, north side of 12 Mile Road between Franklin and Northwestern Highway, Section 7, with the following reasons and conditions. Subject to site plan conditions of PSP 23-0004. Restaurant operations shall be limited to Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to midnight. Submitted special use with any conditions recommended by the Planning Commission and Planning Department will be of such size and character that will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the B3 General Business District. Location, size, intensity, and periods of operation of the proposed use is designed to eliminate any possible nuisance likely to emanate therefrom, which might be adverse to occupants of any nearby permitted use. Proposed use is in accordance with the spirit and purpose of this chapter and is not inconsistent with or contrary to the objectives sought to be accomplished by this chapter and the principles of sound planning. Proposed uses of such character and vehicular traffic generated will not have an adverse effect or be detrimental to the surrounding land uses or adjacent thoroughfares. The proposed uses of such character, intensity, and range on the site so as to eliminate any adverse effects resulting from noise, dust, dirt, glare, odor, fumes. Proposed use will not be adverse for the promotion of the health, safety, and welfare of the community, and the proposed use is designed and operated so as to provide security and safety to employees and the general public. Thank you.
Thank you. So looking for motion only on the special land use first.
To the chair,
Commissioner Martin.
motion for favorable recommendation for PSLU 23-0002.
Support.
Okay, we have a favorable motion by Commissioner Martin, supported by Commissioner Willis. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right.
Okay, then the next item would then be with regard to the site plan, if there's any additional questions or comments.
Okay. And again, the fence conversation, I guess, should have been held off for a minute onto the site plan portion. Any additional comments, though, since we've added it?
Again, additional comment, to ensure there is some type of a path between the soon-to-be agreed upon additional parking space and your place.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They'll be taken care of.
And if I could, you'll need to submit revised plans and show a stripe area for that pedestrian pathway.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
And I'd like to talk to you about that as well.
Yep.
The actual location of that when you come in.
Not a problem.
Okay. No other comments. We have a planner's recommendation.
Yes, thank you. With regard to PSP 23-0004, the Planning Department does recommend favorable recommendation of the site plan review request of ZA Design Build on behalf of the owner, Patad Development, to allow for the conversion of an existing bank building to a standalone Savvy Sliders restaurant with drive-through, property located at 26336 West 12 Mile Road, the north side of 12 Mile between Franklin and Northwestern Highway, Section 7, for the following reasons and conditions. Subject to the special use conditions of PSLU 23-0002. Petitioners receive waivers from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the following. Waiver of 20-foot 5.56 feet of front yard setback from 12 Mile Road, 60 feet required, 39.44 existing. Waiver of 1,387 square feet of front yard landscape, 4,200 square feet required, $2,813 provided. Existing cross-access agreement is to remain in place. Petitioners will continue working with the owner of the office building property to the north for access for 4 parking spaces on that site. Parking agreement is to be recorded with the county. Site shall be developed in accordance with sheet AS1 dated 4/18/23 by ZA Design Build. Building shall be constructed in accordance with the elevation shown on sheet AS.4 and AS.5 dated 4/18/23 by ZA Design. Approval of the site plan or building elevations represented herein does not constitute nor guarantee approval for signage. Separate approval and sign permits must be obtained from the building department for any proposed sign. Landscape plan and details shown on sheet AS.2 dated 4/18/23 by Nagy Devlin Land Design are part of the approved site plan. Petitioner provide a sprinkler system for all landscape areas to encourage preservation of plant material. Petitioner is to execute perpetual maintenance agreement for the landscape and parking areas both on site and in the right-of-way, which includes maintenance of the stormwater detention system. Petitioners implement the recommendations made by the Southfield Police Department's Crime Prevention Bureau regarding site security. Approval of this site plan or building elevations, sorry, I already read that. Exterior lighting shall be shielded to prevent spillage of glare onto adjacent properties. Petitioners to submit a photometric plan prior to going to City Council. Bike racks shall be installed in accordance with Article 4, Section 5.29, Paragraph 12. And then the additional conditions that in lieu of a wall, either fence or landscape, shall be provided on the site. And the final condition that a striped pathway from the employee parking on adjacent property shall be provided from the parking spaces to the building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion on the site plan now, PSP.
Again, I'm sorry, prior to the motion.
Okay.
If I may, I'm sorry, Mr. Spence, I think you made a comment that there would be a fire department review of whether or not there was
Yes,
an
thank you.
escape lane.
Yep.
Would
Yep,
that
so-
be?
Yep, so I will add that as well. That's, just give me a second to put together some verbiage. Petitioner shall work with the parking, or shall work with the fire department regarding exit from the drive-through area.
Okay.
Okay. Looking for a motion on the site plan now, PSP 23-0004.
Move for support.
I'd support.
Okay. We've got a favorable recommendation by Commissioner Willis, supported by Commissioner Bernuti. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you,
Favorable
everyone.
recommendation, and please be in touch with the planning department.
We will.
As they suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and have a good night.
Okay, next public hearing is PZR ODD 23-0001.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is PZR ODD 23-0001. Petitioner is Design House Architecture. Excuse me. Property located at 16025 Northland Drive, which is on the northwest corner, 8 Mile Road and the Lodge Freeway Service Drive. Existing zoning for this property is B3 General Business, and the proposal is to provide for a rezone the property to overlay development district for the conversion of the existing 128,000 square foot general office building to climate-controlled interior self-storage, along with a future phase of mixed-use development along 8 Mile Road. So a little closer look at the property in question. With 8 Mile Road on the south side, the building itself is on the north side, and again, they are looking to convert the existing building over to self-storage. View of the property from Northland Drive, and then from 8 Mile Road. As I noted, existing zoning is B3 General Business, with a future land use plan of Downtown Development Authority sub-area. Excuse me. And if you recall, the Planning Commission did move forward, excuse me, a recommendation for this property to become part of the Northland Boundary District, which is currently going through the process with the council. This is a copy of the proposed site plan along with the landscaping, which shows how the site would be utilized. It does show the required sidewalk along the Northwestern Highway Service Drive, as well as along 8 Mile Road. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Do you want me to take over? Alex, maybe you can do the slides. Next slide, please. So this is a master development plan for 2 phases. Phase 1 would be the conversion of the existing office building. Phase 2 includes potentially a hotel or other retail development fronting 8 Mile. These are some of the details that are proposed as part of Phase 1. And a conceptual landscape plan for Phase 2. This is the interior floor plan of the conversion to self-storage. Go ahead. These are proposed elevations, a change to the building. And then some 3D renderings and perspectives of the overall development. Both with, can you go back one? On the left, if you could go back one more. Slide 32, please. On the left shows a proposed 1-story retail center. On the right shows a 3 to 4-story hotel. With that, if the petitioner would like to make some comments.
Please again state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name's Hunter Gelworth from Design House Architecture.
Can you, we can't hear you. You have
little quiet.
to Put the mic up closer.
Hear me now? Good afternoon. My name's Hunter Gelworth from Design House Architecture, 3300 Auburn Road, Auburn Hills, Michigan. I know the last meeting there was a concern about the absorption rate of self-storage in the area, and I did share this with Jeff last week. I just wanted to share or read part of it for you guys just to consider. So the current availability for self-storage is 4.9 square feet per person, and the market equilibrium is 5.5 square feet per square foot per person. So it's below, and then just specifically for climatized self-storage, it is at 2.05 square foot per person, and the equilibrium's at 2.5. So I know that was something that was brought up at the last meeting as a concern of how close we are to that saturation point. And from our market analysis, it's showing that the space is still below what is required for the area. And then, of course, with the future development going on in the area, that equilibrium will, of course, go up. Sorry. That equilibrium will, of course, go up farther, requiring more self-storage. So.
If I could ask a couple follow-up questions. So again, we get provided these market studies, and they keep showing that the storage market is being underserved. We also are aware that during the pandemic, a lot of people did start up businesses, work out of their home, do the Amazon delivery. They need a place for storage. I would also argue that with the proposed 2,000 units of residential at Northland, there is a need. But I can hear the council asking two fundamental questions. How much of this storage is going to be serving Southfield residents versus residents outside the city? And what is the typical service area? Is it 2 miles, 5 miles? Whatever that typical service area for storage, we'd like to see a map showing other storage facilities within that radius. And I strongly recommend you have that information available prior to council. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further?
I guess just as a side note, if I may, part of our market analysis does have those maps in it. A typical area for that serves as self-storage is usually 3 miles. 5 miles, it's a little bit, not as much, but still serves that radius 5 miles outside of it. And there are quite a few other self-storage facilities within that 3-mile radius, but a lot of them are in the Oak Park. So this proposal is to not only serve that 3-mile radius, but also serve more of the Southfield community.
Do you have that information as far as, I don't know if you can guess which direction people are going to drive from, but it might be something to try to work on for the next meeting? if
Yeah,
you
of
don't
course.
have. Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. I'd like to open up the public hearing at this time. Seeing no public, we'll close the public hearing and open up to the planning commission. Counterclockwise this time, or is this clockwise? Commissioner Bernuti?
I wanted to understand, I thought the last time we talked about this, it was going to be a 4-story, a 4-floor, and this says it's going to be 3?
So there's one, I guess, story underground at the basement that the elevators do access. So it's 3 stories above grade, 1 below.
And will all of the floors be used for storage only?
Yes. The 4th floor does have a large majority of it that's mechanical use currently. So a large majority of it is mechanical for the building, and most likely we'd have to get engineers involved to figure out exactly how much of it's required for the building to stay.
Sir, could you please get closer to the microphone?
Yes, 'cause
Of course.
We can't hear you up here.
I apologize.
The other question I had was in reference to the security of the building. Could you elaborate a little on that?
So for the self-storage building, there would be gated off, or gated accesses around any of the drive entrances into it. And then the only other entrance would be the main lobby entrance. Most of the time with self-storage facilities, we have 24-hour camera surveillance, and then, of course, the gated access is only accessible by users of the storage facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodwin-Dye?
Can you refresh us on the hours of operation?
So access to the building would be 24/7 to anybody who has a unit inside. Lobby hours would only be typical operation hours, Monday through Friday, and only be 1 or 2 employees, that alternate.
Thank you.
Mr. Willis?
Thank you. Will you engage in any other business there, like selling boxes, box cutters, pulleys, things of that nature?
In other facilities, we have small retail portions that sell boxes, tape, bubble wrap, the typical storage needs. If that's something our client would like to explore, that we definitely include it. So
Okay, will they be available 24/7?
probably not the retail portion, since it'd be considered in the lobby. So it probably wouldn't be 24/7, just those main operating hours through the week.
Okay. And how many people do you expect to work there at any given time?
I would say no more than 2 at any given time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gruber?
No, my questions were answered.
No.
Thanks.
Commissioner Martin?
You mentioned operating hours. What would be the operating hours?
So access to the building would be 24/7 for anybody who has a unit inside. But for operating hours, the lobby would be typical Monday through Friday, typical operating hours. I don't know if there's a specific regulation, but 8 a.m. to, typical 9-hour day, most likely.
Okay. There is a ramp at the rear of the building. What is that ramp for?
So that ramp in the rear of the building would be for like a drive-up loading area. So you could pull your vehicle right up, park there for a limited time, and then unload your boxes into your unit or onto a dolly to bring to your unit, instead of having to park and then carry your boxes from the parking into the building.
So it's not really a ramp, it's just a horseshoe, or is it going from one
Are you-
level to the next level?
Sorry, are you mentioning the pedestrian ramp or the vehicular ramp?
One, I don't know what type of ramp it is, because we just have the horseshoe down here at the bottom, right there.
So the horseshoe is existing. It's an existing pedestrian ramp currently for accessibility into the building.
Oh,
Yeah,
first
and-
from ground floor to ground
Yes.
floor? Okay. And you just mentioned that the storage is from the ground floor up?
The storage is the entire building. Like I said, there's one floor underground, and then there's 3 floors above grade.
Okay. And then you have, in part of the building, there's a 4th floor, and that's identified as mechanical and in storage at the front of that?
So that's technically the 4th floor if you consider the basement first floor, yes.
Run that by me one more time?
Yes, the 4th floor is part mechanical, part storage, but it's the 4th floor in the entire building. Its basement's 1, the grade is 2, 3, and then 4. So there's 4 floors in total. They're labeled wrong. I apologize.
Because if you're saying this, what we have here in the drawing is 4 floors above ground, and then would be a 5th floor below ground.
I do apologize. I was misunderstanding. There is a 4th floor in the middle portion of the building, and the edges, the side parts don't go all the way to the
Okay.
top, so I apologize.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, if you look at the images here, you look at the top one, it depends on which side of the building you're looking at. You can see looks like a 4-floor building here, but yet when you look at the bottom one, it looks like it's, no, never mind. No, originally I had thought that maybe it was the one side of the building was a little bit higher than the other one, so it was almost like a walkout off the back, but no, that's
Yeah.
not true.
It's more of a penthouse, it's not
Yeah.
a full floor.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of that floor is mechanical, existing mechanical use right now.
Yeah, when at our initial meeting, we had that as 3 floors, and then the 4th floor was mechanical at the back, and then storage at the front. And
Yes.
And then when we came back again, we only had 3 floors, so that really threw us off. That what happened to the 4th floor? Ms. Bermudi and I had talked about that, trying to figure out what's going on. So above ground, there are 3 floors, except in the center portion, where there's a 4th floor that's mechanical in the rear, storage in the front.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. And that horseshoe is just pedestrian walkway on the ground floor, on the ground. Okay, not another floor, okay. Now, can you show, I know there's a key card entrance on the left, which would be the west side of the building, and there's a key card entry there. There's a key card entry at the south, on the west side, on the east side of the building. What about the north side? Is there one at the Northwestern Highway and Northland Drive?
Are you
Top
talking
left?
about for,
At the front of the building, other side, up. There we go, there.
So
Is there a key card entry near there or something, or?
currently there's no gated access proposed there. The gated access is more on the south and west side of the building. That's where those key card accesses would be, and any access up there would be through the main lobby.
So, but you can enter there with?
Yes.
With the key card or just a door?
Are you into the building?
Yeah,
Yeah, you could just enter in through there with the key card, and during operating hours, it'd be open. If you actually go to the floor plans, it probably might show it better. So actually, go back one. So the pink areas are all key card access areas. And then the orange areas is that lobby space I was mentioning. So those pink areas would be the key card access areas.
okay, I got you now.
So after hours, you can't get in through the main lobby?
No.
Okay.
Okay, that's there. Okay. All right. That was it. Thank you.
Commissioners, any new questions? Other questions?
None.
Well, I think like everybody else, when you start to see the same type of project every month, it's either a really good trend or there's a point where there's too many of them. Assume this building's been vacant for quite a few years. It's one of those large floor plate, was a big single company building that's not very common anymore. I don't think so. I always like the idea of if you can adaptively reuse something, what does it open up the possibilities to for the rest of the site, which it looks like you're considering already. I know you drive west from 8 Mile, Oak Park really piled a bunch of them right in that last corner right against Southfield. So years ago, probably like 10, 12 years ago. So that was maybe the first self-storage buildings I ever noticed going in old office buildings, and then now it's a very common trend, obviously. So, I'm in favor of all those things. I understand that, something on the very north part of Northwestern Highway might not make sense to someone that might want to use this location. This is, kind of a corner gateway to the city too, so it could serve other communities well. I think all those things are fine. So, yeah, I think it's a good use for the site, but probably the next one or two that comes in is going to be too many self-storage buildings. Planner Crowe?
Yeah, the one thing that I still don't think that you've really met is if we're going to the Northland ODD, there's design standards that have been adopted, and I'd like this ultimately, when someone drives by in the future, to say, oh, this was all incorporated as part of the 110 acres at Northland. And we've adopted streetscape elements, and I know you show some of the streetscape furnishings, but what's missing is, for example, at the northeast corner of the property, there should be some masonry screening wall that ties in with what's going to be kitty corner at Northland. There's some piers that are missing. You have used some decorative fencing, but that's the one thing that's deficient that I'm going to hold the line on. If we're going to go through the process of adopting this as part of the Northland ODD, it has to meet the design standards. And it might be well landscaped, but it's not meeting the elements that we've spent a lot of time trying to develop, so that at the end of the day, when all this is developed, it looks like a unified design. So if Planning Commission would like to make a favorable recommendation tonight, I would say that that has to be a condition of approval, and I will hold this up going to council until I'm satisfied that we have proper streetscape elements provided.
And you bring up the point, maybe I missed it, of what was, what's happening with the large parking lot out on 8 Mile side, right? What happens for the next 10 years if nothing goes in on that
Yeah,
site?
so currently we have consultants that are looking and doing test and analysis to see what is the best fit for that space.
Good.
I know we proposed renderings of retail and a hotel, but it's open to any possibility of development there, and we're working on getting a couple options of what to propose there currently.
So the parking lot just remains
For right now, yes.
as is? Okay. So that's a separate site, Terry? The south and north are essentially splitting it?
The way this will work is, if we approve the overarching ODD for the entire parcel, Phase 1 would receive its site plan approval, and then at some future point, Phase 2 would have to come back for site plan approval. But they would still have to meet the perimeter requirements of the ODD.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, anything further? All right. Planner Spence, looking for a recommendation, including the additional condition that Planner Crowe just mentioned?
Yep. So with regard to PZR ODD 23-0001, the Planning Department does recommend favorable consideration to rezone 5.56 acres of land to ODD Overlay Development District with underlying B3 general business. approve the site plan for the proposal and create a master development plan and agreement to allow for the conversion of the existing site for interior climate-controlled self-storage and potential mixed use along 8 Mile Road for the following reasons. Subject to approval of PZTA 23-0001 by the City Council to add this property located at 16025 Northland Drive to the boundary district of the Northland Overlay Development District. Proposal shall be consistent with the surrounding zoning classification and is in accordance with the Southfield Comprehensive Master Plan that indicates proposed Northland boundary district for this parcel. Proposal utilizing ODD, Overlay Development District provisions with underlying B3 general business, will allow for the petitioner to develop the property with land uses compatible with abutting existing developments and will allow for the development flexibility in accordance with the ODD development agreement. Proposed rezoning will not have adverse effects upon any adjoining zonings or land uses. Petitioner is to work with the planning department and the city attorney to finalize the overlay development district development agreement. And the final condition, proper streetscape elements in accordance with the Northland design standards shall be incorporated into the plan prior to going to city council.
Thank you. Have a motion? Anybody ready to make a motion?
I'm sorry. I move for favorable consideration of, I think we're PZDORDD 23-0001 for a conditional favorable based upon the things outlined by Mr. Crowe. Mr. Crowe and
Second, the
Okay.
support.
Okay, we got a favorable motion with conditions from Commissioner Willis, supported by Commissioner Martin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? All right, please be in contact with the planning department for those comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, we have PSP 23-0006.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. PSP 23006 is the project as proposed by Habitat for Humanity Oakland. This project actually spans 3 separate properties. They're vacant parcels, 2434, 276, 001, 002, and 003. These properties are on the south side of Westland between Evergreen and Prescott. Existing zoning is RT attached single family. And again, the proposal for the site plan is for the construction of 3 residential duplexes for a total of 6 new units. Just a closer look at the properties in question. I will note that while they're vacant, they did have houses on them at one time. Existing conditions of the properties. And I add this image because this is the duplex that was constructed on the north side of the street. If you recall, when the properties went through the rezoning process, this property on the north side was joined along with the 3 properties on the south side that got the RT attached single family designation. This is the construction of the duplex on the north side. I add this just to see the quality of construction and basically what you would be seeing on the south side of the street as well. I will note, though, that the difference between this and what's being proposed is the location for the garages. The garages are now on the outside instead of on the inside. As I noted, RT attached single family for current zoning with single family for future land use. This is the proposal of the site plan. Within the RT attached single family zoning district, the setback requirements are 30 feet on all sides, which means north side, the side yard setbacks, as well as the rear yard. The petitioner does meet all of those requirements. The site plan then sets the distance in between each of the buildings, which I believe is about 24 feet in between each one. So they do meet the setback requirements for the building. I will note that in accordance with RT, The minimum requirement for a three-bedroom unit is 1,100 square feet. The proposal, the petitioner is proposing 1,000 square feet. So there will be waivers that will be required for square footage of each unit for a total of 600. If I recall, the units across the street were actually smaller than what's being proposed here. I believe that there were about 900 and maybe 50 or so square feet for the units across the street. So these are a little bit bigger than what was originally proposed and approved for across the street. Landscape plan. This is the floor plan. Proposed elevations. And as I noted, unlike the picture that I showed earlier, in this case, the garages are going to be on the outside. And with that, I will ask the petitioner to come forward and explain his project further.
Please give us your name and address for the record, and make sure to speak loudly and clearly.
Yes, my name is Joe Richardson. I'm with Habitat for Humanity, Oakland County. We're at 150 Osmond in Pontiac. So we're proposing to put up these two duplexes. As Jeff said, it's a little bit different design than the one across the street. We actually like this one a little bit better. Just a little more square footage. We like the garages to be separated instead of sharing a driveway. Other than that, we have about 20 trees or so that we need to remove. The remaining trees will stay except for anything that's deadfall or is dead that's standing. A lot of the low brush in the back will probably be removed just to enlarge the rear area for more area for kids to play, that kind of stuff. I guess that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Martin? Comments, questions?
If I remember correctly, you just said that this was approximately smaller than the original size, or than there was 1,000 foot?
1,000 square feet. The one across the street, we're about a 950.
Okay.
Only, well, yeah, 950. Plus the garages on these units are are wider than the garages on the existing one that we just built.
Would you consider this a two-car garage, a one-and-a-half-car garage? Just
It'd be more like closer to a 1.5, yeah.
to allow some storage space. Actually, I have no issues or concerns with it. I think it's a good project, and I like to see it move on and more.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Gruber?
I have a question. Are the backyards just one giant backyard, or are they split down the middle? How does that work?
It's one big backyard, but the property lines divide them. That would be it. So
Okay.
it's like one big open park kind of in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Willis?
Thank you. This may be a little off topic. I believe you said cost for each unit was about $425,000?
Correct. The total unit, yeah, 425, yeah.
Okay, but that would be for the total
For the
unit.
duplex.
So about 215,000?
Yeah, per unit, yeah,
Okay, so a little north of $200 a square foot for building costs.
correct.
That makes sense to me. Thank you. That's what I was concerned with.
Is it building cost or sales cost? I assume has the sales cost in this city equaled the building cost yet?
No, it's not.
That number, though, is the sales cost?
That number is what it's going to cost to build it. We have ways of getting it down so people can afford to purchase it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goodwin-Dye?
She asked me.
Gonna- It will appraise at the price that we build it at, okay, or around that price, but we'll make it affordable in another way for people to purchase.
Okay.
If I could, what's the target sale price to make it affordable?
The affordable price is $150,000.
Yeah, I just want everyone to be aware, this is Habitat for Humanity, and they're providing affordable housing, so they're subsidizing. They have materials that are donated, the labor's donated to keep those costs down.
Commissioner Bernuti?
Are these all owners or renters or
No, these would be homeowners.
homeowners?
Yes, all of them.
Oh, good. No,
So
that's
they
the
would
only-
be condominiumized, right, between the two units?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Good.
What was that? I'm sorry.
They're duplexes, but they're being sold as individual units, so they be sold as condos, where you own 50% of the property and the home.
Pardon me. Will you also, you said condos, so they would have association fees or condo fees or whatever by the month?
I don't have that answer. I'd have to get that for you.
Right, thank you.
Planner Crowe?
Yeah, what I can't really tell from this perspective, you had the building, the units across the street had some stone fascia on the front.
Yes.
Is this proposed to have similar?
Yes, it will.
Okay, it's just the rendering doesn't indicate that.
And I must not have got you the latest one with the stone on it. I do have one with, the rendering with the stone on it.
If we could get updated, that,
Yeah,
I think
sure.
they look nicer and,
But that is our intention is to wrap the whole house with stone. And also the sheds that we put in the backyard, the front fascia of the shed will also have stone on it to match the home.
Oh, so the sheds aren't really shown in the rendering that we have?
You can see in this picture on the right-hand side, there's
Yeah.
a shed in the back there. And then I did send you some pictures of the shed.
So I know you said you'd get clarification on the, I think it's a site condominium, unlike a condominium in a multifamily, single building
Yeah.
with the shared corridor would be. So could I assume that there's, or maybe you can tell us, a property line down the center between the two units and then probably halfway between the separate two-unit building next door?
Correct.
And you cut your own grass and then your neighbor cuts their grass?
Yes,
I don't know.
that is correct.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I appreciate you asking that question, because originally I had thought when you had mentioned property lines down the middle, I'm like, I thought that this was all combined into one property and then parceled off into like condominium pieces. Because the only way that we could make this work, at least from the standpoint of those setback requirements, is to not have the property lines in between in the middle. So if it's a condo, that's different. Yeah, so you would just have to meet the setback requirements for the property lines all the way around. So I mention that because there is, part of the condition here will be that the petitioner does have a lot combination for all three properties to combine them into one, and then it would then be condominiumized after that.
so the line, if you could go, Mr. Spence, back to the layout. The line is, that are shown are really condo unit lines. They're invisible lines with regard to, it's all one parcel. They're not separate,
Right.
they're not three separate lots.
Right.
It's one
Yes.
condo unit of X acres, and then each of the individual units are owned, and then equally, the property is subdivided by the six homeowners.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, let me see if I can go back to, you can actually see on this image, if you look at the property to the north, see where the red is? That is actually a condo. So you can see that there's area around that becomes commons, and then the two units are separate up in here that have their own Sidwell parcel number. So that's similar to what would happen down here. So it's not just, it's one big property, But then you have two separate units with a Sidwell parcel that would be condominiumized.
So in essence, our 24, 46, 001, 02, 03 is all going to be one.
It would end up being one parcel. It would have its own
But then
Sidwell
Sidwell
parcel
parcel
number
numbers are gonna
as a
be
parent
6.
parcel, and then each one of the condominium units would have their own Sidwell parcel number.
Right.
That's why two-family doesn't really exist in the city of Southfield, as far as I know. And townhouses don't, well, there's a lot of townhouses.
Yeah.
So I think that's where some of the confusion is coming in. I think we need two-family and three-family and 4 and 12 and 300, but, you know, what are the rules that, like, I remember approving this, or voting to approve this rezoning as more of a test case in this area. Glad to see it's moving forward. Just trying to, again, understand, you know, if this could be replicated in other areas of the city at more of a market rate, you know, higher end product, or, you know, different neighborhoods, where that's gonna go from a planning point of view.
To the chair, can I ask?
Yeah.
The original, the initial project that was done with the two units, have they been sold?
Yes, they have been.
And can I ask, what type of pricing were those?
Those units sold for 150 each.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Commissioners, any other?
Will these units be wheelchair accessible?
Wheelchair accessible? Yes, the current one that we built is wheelchair accessible also. These, we've even broadened the design a little bit more inside to where they're accessible, the bathroom's accessible, and I believe one unit we're going to make a kitchen handicap accessible, meaning you'll just have a hanging sink where you could roll up right under the sink.
Right. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? We have a recommendation from the planning department?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully I can get through this. With regard to PSP 23-0004, the planning department does recommend favorable consideration of the site plan review request of Habitat for Humanity Oakland for the construction of 3 residential duplexes for a total of 6 units of 1,000 square feet each. Property located Sidwell parcels 2434, 476, 001, 002, and 003, south side of Westland between Evergreen Road and Prescott, Section 34, for the following reasons and conditions. Planning Commission finds that one-family units of less than 3 attached units is reasonably necessary or convenient for the satisfactory and efficient development, is necessary for the creation of an effective density development, and is necessary for the extension of a single-family character in a single-family residential district. The following waivers from the Zoning Board of Appeals are required. Waiver of 600 feet of unit square footage total, 6,600 square feet required, 6,000 square feet proposed. Subject to approval of a tree removal permit by City Council. Petitioners have combined the 3 lots into one through a lot combination application with the Assessing Department. Landscaping is to be installed in accordance with the approved landscape plan prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy unless the season of the year does not permit installation. In that instance, a bond must be submitted to the building department to cover the cost of installation, and a temporary certificate of occupancy shall be given upon completion of landscaping and approval of the same by the planning department. Bond will be returned, and final certificate of occupancy shall be given. $6,000 tree bond shall be provided to cover the cost of 20 replacement trees for the project. Tree protection fencing is to be installed per the approved plan. Fencing is to be inspected by the planning department prior to the release of building permits for work proposed. Exterior lighting shall be shielded to prevent spillage of glare into adjacent property. In lieu of a full irrigation system, petitioners provide one outside water spigot per unit for all landscape areas to encourage preservation of plant material. Petitioners to execute a perpetual maintenance agreement for the landscape and parking areas both on site and in the right-of-way. which includes maintenance of any stormwater detention system. Petitioners to implement the recommendations made by the Southfield Police Department's Crime Prevention Bureau regarding site security. In lieu of the required bike rack, petitioner shall provide at least one bike hanger in the garage of each unit. Buildings can be constructed in accordance with the submitted elevations. Per Article 4, Section 5.13, Paragraph 18, sidewalks not less than 5 feet in width shall be constructed 1 foot inside the right-of-way line of all abutting streets. Due to the nature of the development, in keeping with the single-family character of the area and the way parking is situated on the site in driveways and garages, a 6-foot-high masonry screen wall is not required adjacent to parking areas. And the site shall be designed and developed to contain public works of art in accordance with Section 5.22-5 Public Art, Article 4, general requirements of the zoning ordinance unless exempted based on written stipulation. Thank you.
Leonard Crowe?
Yeah, Mr. Spence, just a correction, under the $6,000 tree bond, it's written 22, it's numerically shown as 20. I would
Oh.
imagine 20 is correct because
Correct.
20 times 300 is 6,000, so I
Right.
just want to make sure we correct that for the record.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Commissioner Martin?
question the perpetual maintenance agreement for the landscaping?
Mhm.
That's correct?
Correct. Yeah, if I may, through the chair, every project that goes through this process requires a perpetual maintenance agreement. It basically is the promise of the property owner to maintain the property, replace landscaping, cut the lawn, so on and so forth. Yeah, each and every property that has gone through the process of site plan review for a lot of years now has required a perpetual maintenance agreement. And it is recorded with the county.
I cut my grass for a reason. Thank you.
Looking for a motion?
To the chair,
Commissioner Martin?
motion to approve the favorable recommendation for PSP 23-0006.
Support.
A favorable recommendation by Commissioner Martin, supported by Commissioner Willis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, favorable recommendation passes. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to this.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes, March 1st, 15th, and 22nd, 2023.
Need someone to approve the minutes? Mr. Martin,
Just looking for a motion unless you have
you want to approve the minutes?
comments or clarifications. Commissioner Martin?
I motion to approve the study meeting minutes for March 1st, the regular meetings of March 15th and 22nd. Those two meetings had a small change in them, and I hope the board has correction to remove my name from the approval in the second paragraph, the second sentence.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, with regard to Mr. Martin did make me aware of that change earlier. Mr. Willis does have the revised copy that has changed out Mr. Martin for Chair Stevens Gunn.
Thank you.
Okay, I just need a second on this.
Support.
All right. So we got a favorable motion by Commissioner Martin with the amendment, supported by Commissioner Goodwin-Dye. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Now we have the public comment portion of the meeting. I'd like to open up for public comments at this time. Person addressing the commission shall be limited to a period of 3 minutes unless such period of time is extended by the presiding officer or by majority vote of the commission. Seeing no public, I'll close the public comment section at this time. Next, council items update.
Yes, so through the chair, if I can recall, the office conversion to urgent care was discussed at last Monday's meeting after your joint meeting. The petitioner, since your negative recommendation because it was deficient on parking, has worked with the adjacent property owner. That property was extra wide because there was a 10-foot alley that had run between their two properties. He's agreed to sell an additional 10 feet to allow the petitioner to gain 6 or 7 parking spaces. And therefore, he'd be within the deficit of 10% or 2 spaces if he's able to acquire the property. There was a consensus on council that if he can move forward and gets rezoning that 10-foot strip to vehicular parking, do a lot combination, and do the proper layout, that they would be in favor of that. So the petitioner will have to resubmit for a rezoning application, a lot split, or lot combination. So you will see this project back again soon, and I think this is a much better plan, meets more of the intent of the parking. And the second item that planning brought forth is we got approved for OHM consulting engineers to do preliminary engineering and cost estimates for another 1.25 miles of pathway on 9 Mile Road from Evergreen East to past the mixing bowl. So those were the 2 planning items from last Monday's meeting.
Great, thank you. Miscellaneous, the next Planning Commission study meeting, May 3rd. Anything else?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Any other items from the commission?
Does anybody have any comments or follow-up from our joint meeting that you want to have us investigate or would like to share quickly? Or
I think the joint meeting with the city council was an excellent opportunity to get to know each other, to feel each other out, and to see that we do have a lot of common goals. I think it was good, and I think the idea of having more is also a good idea, and I think they are acceptable to that too.
I agree with that, and I'd like to also thank you for starting it off the way that you did, because I think it let everyone know, the council, everyone know exactly why we wanted to meet with them, you know, and the way that we were all seated was perfect, because I think it kept down that level of, you
Us
know,
versus
you
them,
against
right,
them
yeah.
kind of thing. And some of the things that I learned there from the council, I never thought about it when we make our decisions. And I think it's helpful for us to know where their thinking is, you know, because, you know, what was his name? Mr. Frazier. He started out, you know, kind of rough, but he wanted to make his point across as to why he turned down or approved or whatever he does. And it's good for us to understand that. I'd love to have more often, you know, meetings with them as well.
yeah, I think one or two of you echoed, though, our charge as planning commissioners on making a recommendation to council so they can make informed decisions is we need to follow the letter of the ordinance. And we don't want to forget that.
Yeah.
And I know you guys do a good job with that, but we are, you guys are all residents of this community. You live here, you're vested in here. But our charge is to look at the ordinance as written and make recommendations when we need to amend. And this example of this wall requirement is something that we're going to take up and look at putting in future amendments. Because again, it might have made sense 50 years ago. It doesn't make sense today, in my opinion. But we can't forget that we're charged by state law to enforce the regulations. And if the regulations need to be changed, we make recommendations to the council, and the council ultimately has the final say on recommendations. But I really would like us to try to work together towards being in compliance with our redevelopment ready and have site plan final review here at the commission's level. And part of that is a trust level by the council that they can feel comfortable that we're following the ordinances.
And it will cut down on the time a lot.
And my comment is, I think we can all probably say we saw the same thing, but I don't know about feeling the same thing. I just kind of felt that we accomplished a lot, kind of felt that we understood what was going on with each one of our missions, the council and commission, individual missions. I saw some of their problems, and it's like, oh, okay, I can understand that. And I think that's the kind of thing that, you know, allows us to work more efficiently. So emotionally, I felt it was a much better. It was a great meeting to understand factually what was going on, but I think emotionally, too, it just kind of tied us together a little bit.
And I kind of appreciate them being frank and honest about why they make some of the decisions that they make.
The
because-
politics.
Yeah, because of the politics and the positions that they're in.
Well, we are being recorded, so just keep that in mind.
Okay, I apologize. But they were frank and honest, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was just good. I feel like we had a joint meeting several years ago, and then with the pandemic of being on video, where we couldn't even see any other faces for 2 years, just to even reconnect and go, oh yeah, this is who everybody is. And it's just easier to have a conversation the next time, you know, even if you're not trying to solve anything that day. So I think it was a good, positive step, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other, Commissioner Martin?
I have on my calendar for the May 3rd meeting, is that we doing something with the city budget?
Well, there are a series of special meetings to vet the budget through May. So in the past, each department is given opportunity to come and present or defend their budget requests at various council meetings prior to them actually adopting the budget. So there's at least 3 or 4 special meetings in May.
I just had it written down on my calendar. I was just, thank you.
There's nothing further. Meeting is adjourned.